locations throughout the world.
Standing passengers, please do not lean against the doors.
Picture goers, we bring to you new films of interest.
Chicago in State is next. Doors open on the left.
The miracle of the motion picture.
Please be considerate when talking on your phone or listening to electronic devices.
Chicago's a nice town if you're looking for pizza.
Welcome to 4 Stars, the Chicago Film Podcast, a podcast where we talk about movies set in or based in Chicago.
Each episode, we'll be discussing a different movie that's set in or was filmed in the Chicago area, its cultural historic relationship to Chicago, and whether it's a good representation of the city.
We want to figure out what makes a Chicago movie different from movies about other cities, and to answer the question of what a Chicago movie even is.
I'm Paco Alvarez, a journalist based in Chicago.
And I'm Jeremy Martyr. I am a filmmaker and manager of the Music Box Theater.
And today we're going to be talking about the 1988 classic Child's Play, directed by Tom Holland, starring Catherine Hicks, Chris Sarandon, Alex Vincent, and Brad Dourif as Chucky the Killer Doll.
Later in the episode, film critic Matt Cipolla will be joining us to talk about the movie and the Chucky series more broadly. But before we get into that, let's talk about what was going on in the city in 1988, the year that Child's Play was released.
So Child's Play came out November 9th, 1988. Do you know what happened about 2 days before that?
No, what happened?
George H.W. Bush was elected president of the United States.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
So I think we can we could sort of relate to the vibe that Chicagoans were feeling at the time of having to deal with 4 more years of Reaganomics.
Mm-hmm.
Funny enough, in 2004, right before the release of the 5th Chucky, Seed of Chucky, George Bush Jr. was reelected as president. So I think maybe we'll be getting a Chucky movie soon.
Yeah. They just canceled the TV show. So
yeah, so actually maybe we
definitively they were like, no more Chucky.
Yeah, it's
That's what
bad
we're
enough
saying.
news every single time. I wonder if I think the other movies came out in odd years, so it might not have been. It'd be funny if every single time a Chucky movie came out, a Republican won.
I think instead of saying like I'm going to become the Joker, we should be saying I'm going to become the Lakeshore Strangler.
Yeah, the Lakeshore Strangler. But yeah, anyway, right before Chucky came out, George H.W. Bush was elected president, and so most of the headlines. So I was checking out the archives of the Chicago Tribune and the Chicago Sun-Times, and most of the headlines were revolving around the election and turnout. Turnout was
68%.
Yeah, 68%, which was considered pretty low back then. I think that is, I guess, generally pretty low, especially for a city like Chicago, which is like a Democratic stronghold. But I looked at the Chicago Board of Elections for what turnout has been, and as of now, which is a few days after the election, turnout for the most recent one was 63%. So they did
Feeling great.
Yeah, so great job. So most of the news around the time was about George H.W. Bush being elected, but some headlines I kept seeing in both the Tribune and the Sun-Times was about a corruption trial that was starting right around this time as well. Specifically, the headline itself for the Sun-Times that initially piqued my interest was prosecutor calls $25,000 a bribe of CTA's Medley. Jeremy, do you know who Howard Medley is?
I don't. I'm reading about him right here in front of me. Seems like an interesting guy.
Yeah, he's pretty fun. So he's kind of like, I think like a city like Chicago is probably like filled with these guys, and like we just don't know who they are unless you're like super involved in like local politics. But he's kind of just like a mid-level like power broker who kind of just like knows a lot of people and is able to like use those connections to like get into these small like positions of power that end up like dealing with like millions of dollars in like contractor money,
like kickbacks.
Sort of. It's more just like, I guess in this specific case, he literally did get a kickback.
Oh, okay.
And was bribed. Or like
that's
he got a bribe.
How he got caught. Like the most of the people in Chicago who do this just disseminate the money to the people.
Yeah. And you just
contacts.
and you've just like, you've just like made connections with politicians over time, and like they kind of give you like a position of power, like on the CTA board, which is where he specifically was at. But he's kind of funny also because So a lot of the information I got about him was from not 1988, but a few years later. Ben Jaworski
sounds right.
Wrote a great profile of him called Howard Medley's Bad Move. Sounds like Max Keeble's Big Move. I wonder if I got the title from that. Which is sort of just like a profile of him. So yeah, he like called himself, and some other people called him like one of the most powerful black politicians in Chicago. He was sort of like, he kind of walked the line between like the Democratic political machine and the more like black reformer politicians. Like he was kind of just like a machine guy, but he was friends with some of like the more reformer types. The most fun thing about him was in that Chicago Reader profile of him, it kind of gives you a good idea of the type of guy he was. So this is a quote from a former high-ranking official in Harold Washington's administration. Who really knows how much power Howard really had? He's the kind of guy who would walk into the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs and say hi to the secretary. Then he'd go over to the press office and say hello to the receptionists. Then he'd stop by the mayor's office and wave to the guard. Later on, he'd tell you, today I had to meet with Intergovernmental Affairs, the press office, and the mayor's office. He's shrewd. If people think you have power, it doesn't matter if you don't. And I feel like he's just like, what I found so interesting about him is that he's just like kind of like, there's so many of these types of people, just like guys who like know a bunch of people, and they like have these, like they can just convince you that they're powerful or that they know a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely a type of guy in Chicago.
And like a lot of those guys, he got indicted by the feds. And he did. So the trial that was originally mentioned in the Sun Times and Tribune that I first learned about him, it had to do with this like really convoluted like bribery scheme where, so he was on the CTA board. He like got this kind of sketchy oil vendor like a contract to give diesel fuel to the CTA, and the CTA was like, this guy's kind of sketchy, and they started doing like an internal audit of him, the contractor, and the feds alleged that the contractor paid off Medley to kind of call off the audit. And he paid him off. I think he only ended up making $25,000, which is not really worth going to prison for.
Yeah.
And it was kind of
shit.
Yeah, it was kind of, and the way they actually did the bribe was a kind of convoluted scheme. We can link the articles to the show notes.
Yeah, this is really interesting. It looks like other people like viewed him as a reformer. Other people viewed him as like actually giving back to the poor. Like his big deal was getting kids jobs in the summer work program.
Yeah.
You should have seen those kids. They come in here all the time with their resumes asking for Commissioner Medley. That's fascinating.
Yeah, and I guess it's like, and I guess if you just convince a bunch of kids I don't know, if you're powerful, then people like you. Yeah. But he was kind of he did fall at some point. Yeah. The first trial, I think, ended a mistrial, and then he was found guilty in his second trial, and he went to prison. But I don't know. I feel like we're gonna probably meet a lot of these types of guys.
Yeah, this is exciting. I like this as a first segment because it says a lot about the type of people in, especially this period.
Yeah. And I think, I guess another I was just thinking about is that I would say like the big reputation that Chicago has, and that Child's Play specifically, I think, just like
uses as this,
uses is like, okay, like Chicago is like has a ton of crime all the time, and like the way that we think about that crime is specifically very racialized, and it's like violent and like gangs and like robberies and stuff. But in reality, I think when people think about Chicago crime, they should be thinking about all these like low level politicians doing all these scams all the time.
At like a firm or a like a a manufacturing plant or
like utilities company.
Like there's all these like I don't know, like metals companies that it's like, what is going on there? It's like very banal crime and evil that I shouldn't use the word banal. It's very boring. It's very basic. It's very it's not fun, it's not sexy. But it's the way things are done, and it is used to benefit people in their community. Like the whole thing about Chicago is that like, let me help my family and the families who are like me.
Yeah.
And that's the type of crime that gets done. And yeah, the idea of Chicago is like, oh, you walk in Chicago, you're going to get shot. Like, oh, you go in Chicago, you don't go to these neighborhoods. For the majority of Chicago, the type of things that are happening are the Howard Medleys of the world.
Yeah.
We're just getting kickbacks and
Yeah, and like probably like you're probably dealing it with some inconvenience at some point in your week as a result of some kind of like contractor malfeasance.
Yeah.
That goes back to some like weird guy who's in charge of some board that you've never heard of.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch Thief because I feel like Thief is a good, representation of these type of guys too.
Yeah, definitely.
Who are a little bit more evil and a little bit more connected, but look and act like the type of guy we're talking about.
Yeah. But let's talk about another type of criminal.
A killer doll.
Yeah. The other.
That's the other type of guy.
Yeah, that's the other type of guy that Chicago is known for.
A Lakeshore Strangler.
Yeah, the Lakeshore Strangler.
What a good fucking name.
It's a great name.
Yeah.
Did
he do all of his crimes on the Lakeshore?
I don't know if the TV series goes into what actual crimes he did. I feel like the movies just kind of, he killed women mostly, it seemed.
Is he like the duck walk killer?
Do
you remember the duck walk killer?
From like a few years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom was obsessed with him.
Yeah, because he was Rogers Park guy.
Yeah. But
also all my coworkers call me the duck walk killer because I walk like that.
So
yeah. Where was I the night of?
No, because I feel like he's the Lakeshore Strangler. Like he must have been more of like a serial killer type.
Yeah.
But they never really go into it. Anyway.
Yeah, I'll do a quick description of this movie. This is Child's Play, 1988. It's a movie about Karen Barkley, a single mother in Chicago who gets a present for her son, a good guy doll, named Chucky for her son, Andy. And unbeknownst to them, this doll has been possessed by the spirit of the Lakeshore Strangler, Charles Lee Ray. By using voodoo, he enters the doll and commits violent acts. And it culminates in many murders, and they have to take Chucky down.
There's not that many murders, it's like 4.
4. Yeah, that's too many murders.
That's a fair point. I guess like if someone was like 4 people just died tonight.
For like a franchise like this, it's not, the body count I guess is not that high.
Yeah.
But
I'm trying to think.
I feel like he kills like a couple dozen people throughout the whole franchise.
Yes. And then also, I guess we don't know how many people he killed as the Lakeshore Strangler.
Yeah, and the car. How many people were killed in that car scene?
Yeah, in the car chase. The one car chase.
Good scene.
Yeah, great scene. But yeah, I feel like most people are probably familiar with Chucky, the iconography of Chucky, who he is. He's a killer doll. He's got red hair.
Mm-hmm. Not a lot of people know this is a Chicago movie.
No, yeah.
And it's a good Chicago movie. Like, we talk about it with Matt a lot, which we'll get into. But, despite the way that they came up with this movie being set in Chicago, when they finally got there, they actually paid attention to their locations. They, actually got on the train. They actually visited locations. And the apartment complex that they're in is an iconic Chicago building.
Yeah. All right. So here is our conversation with film critic Matt Cipolla about Child's Play and the Chucky series more generally.
Thank you for joining us, Matt. We're inviting Matt Cipolla to the podcast, a member of the Chicago Film Critics Association. And is that right?
That's
what
true.
they call him.
That's correct.
And all-around Chucky connoisseur. Welcome, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
Are you excited to talk about Chucky?
I'm pumped. It's a nice, crisp, 80-degree, almost November day.
I am very excited to talk about this movie with you, as well as the entire franchise. We have talked at length. Matt and I, we work together at the Music Box, and I think that this is the movie that I associate most with you, aside from Scream.
Okay.
Is specifically Bride and Seed, of course, but Chucky as a whole. Before we get into it, before we launch into it, we're talking about Chucky because it is a Chicago movie. Can you tell us a little bit about your connection to Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, so my oldest sister moved to Chicago. So I'm from like 30 minutes outside Detroit. So I'm not from here. My oldest sister moved to Chicago in 2011. And so that was the first time I'd actually been anywhere in the city. And then I moved here in August 2014 for college. So that's what that was. And, aside from, going back home every once in a while for summer, I've essentially lived here for a little over 10 years. But I don't have a ton. There's not a lot to say, but yep, I live here.
And
Yeah. I guess the first thing I kind of wanted to maybe do like a little round table of just obviously like Chucky's like this like big horror figure, and I personally have like kind of like I hadn't seen the first movie until like a year and a half ago, but like there was like kind of this image I have of myself as a child watching like a Chucky movie that I feel like just like kind of determined my life afterwards, weirdly. But I thought I was wondering like what your guys's like relationship is to Chucky, like if there's like a certain like memory you have, or like
yeah, why don't you start? Because you seem to have a very important connection to it.
I don't know the veracity of this story, but so I was born in Argentina and we moved to the United States when I was 4. And in my image of this story is that I think in like the weeks leading up to before we left Argentina, I was at like a cousin's house. I don't know what cousin. I don't know if this was a cousin's house, but I just remember sitting with my cousins watching Bride of Chucky and like being so scared. And like the image of just like Jennifer Tilly as like the doll as Tiffany just like scared me just so much. And like my older boy cousins were making fun of me, and a girl cousin was like kind of like trying to make me feel better. But it just like for like all of my childhood I couldn't watch any horror movies, and it was partially like because of that and like a situation I had with It the Clown. It just stuck with me, and like now I watch a ton of horror movies, and since I was a teenager I've been able to, but like as a kid I was just so scared all the time, and like I always associated it with that image I had of watching Chucky as like a 4-year-old.
That's really interesting that you bring up It, because I think my first memory of watching this movie was at a sleepover at my friend Jose Carlos's house. And I think on this night, if I'm not like combining two memories, which I probably am, we did a double feature of one of the Chucky movies. There's no way to know which one. And Pennywise and It, the original It, the Tim Curry one. And I remember not being scared at all of Chucky and being absolutely terrified by Pennywise. And
How old were you?
I must have been 7 or 8, like
Oh,
pretty young.
okay.
And I was a pretty sensitive child, especially to horror and gore. And I remember at the time being like, I can take Chucky. Like, if he and I go, at it.
Oh, like literally you could take Chucky.
I can take Chucky. I can handle Chucky as a film, but I can
Like
kick
practically
Chucky.
speaking, he's not a threat.
Yeah. Which I want to circle back to later because I want to talk about why we think Chucky is scary or isn't scary. But what is your first memory?
Mine is, yeah, I was surprised. Yeah, it's not too far off of your twos. Mine is, it's actually kind of, when I think of Chucky, the impetus of my relationship with him, I think is actually pretty grim. So the thing was, I'm sure I was aware of it very vaguely before, but when Seed of Chucky was coming out, I was a 3rd grader. And so I was 8 when Seed of Chucky came out. A little bit before it came out, and I remember before trailers were specifically attached to specific films, they were just kind of, it was before it was appropriate audiences, it was all audiences, and I feel like they weren't really tailored to a specific movie you're seeing. So I think I was seeing Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban for like the 2nd or 3rd time, and they played the teaser beforehand, and it was traumatizing because it's Glenn Glenda in utero, and that's what the teaser is. It's like 50 seconds and scared the shit out of me. And then I kind of forgot about it. And then when the movie was coming out, I the thing was, I was not, for no fault of anyone in my family or anyone in my life, I was not a happy child. And so this is like me as an 8-year-old. I've been on Lexapro for 2 years, and Seed of Chucky's coming out, and I'm this horrifically depressed 8-year-old. I'm Andy in Child's Play 2. And the thing is, I remember specifically, well, I hadn't seen any of the movies, but surprisingly enough, I was kind of, even then I was like, are you fucking kidding me? The marketing was kind of everywhere, at least for me. I'm sure whoever it was who was working at the time was laughing their ass off when they played a TV spot during like a Saturday night run of Toy Story 2. That was weird. And so when I think back to my first impressions of Chucky, I think of just being deeply scared of not even the concept. Again, that wasn't a threat to me. It was obviously not understanding the irony or the absurdism to it, but just not understanding how anyone could ever do that to another person. I was horrifically frightened from age like 8 to 10 of being just slaughtered by a serial killer. That was my biggest fear. It was like someone breaking into our house and killing us all. And so that was a thing for me. And then I finally watched them 2008, 2009. So I was like 12, 13.
And you ran through the whole franchise at that point?
It was weird. I watched the first 3, and then I had seen so many clips of Bride and Seed that for some reason I didn't immediately go into them. Mm-hmm. It wasn't too much longer, but it wasn't like I was immediately like just binging all of them. And it was like this combination of morbid curiosity as well as conquering my fears. But it was my first horror franchise going through them. It was a little bit before I watched the Screams 1 through 3.
Final Destinations.
Yeah, Final Destination was a little bit later. That would have been like, I watched all of those in like 2010. Mm-hmm. That was like high school for me.
Yeah. Because there's something similar about those franchises. I think Scream has the couching of comedy to it and satire, even though those movies are so scary, especially when I was a kid. But I did have like, oh, this is a movie that's making fun of movies. And I was able to sort of put that in a little box. And Final Destination had the puzzle box of it all, which for me, Final Destination, Saw, and Cube were things that I was like, oh, this is like a fun game. I get to like, I'm playing a little, I'm going on a ride. With Chucky, I didn't watch the Chucky franchise till I finished the last one today. But this wasn't a franchise for me. It wasn't one that resonated with me. I always sort of ranked it very low on my killers list of like the big, franchises. And after watching all of them now, I'm like, the overall average of this franchise is so much higher than the rest of all of the other ones. Like for me, the only one that even, I mean, we should talk about it, but like out of all the major franchises, there's some major stinkers. Like Final Destination has 4. Alien has Requiem.
Final Destination.
Like the 4th one's too.
Final Destination.
The Final Destination.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like there's no really bad Chucky movie.
Yeah. 3 is like the worst one, but it's not like bad. It's just like boring.
I think it's fine. I think even when I watched it when I was like 12, 13, I was like, there's something. I think my thing with 3 is, I mean, you can tell that there's already sort of an atrophy setting in, but that's a movie that felt kind of like, because the first one's very straight-laced and it's pretty gritty, and then the second one is, the character is cruel, but the movie's not. I think the second movie is actually incredibly empathetic, and then the third one I think is kind of at points needlessly brutal without quite matching the imagination of the first 2. But we can get more into that.
Yeah, no, I'm throwing that out there early just because I'm sort of shocked at my turnaround on this franchise in the last few weeks, considering what my take was originally and where I'm at now with it. I think that this franchise is about fear of underestimating someone or something or a circumstance. And for me, I split this franchise squarely into 3 groups. There's the Andy trilogy, right? Then there's the 2, Bride and Seed, and then the final 3.
Like once it goes direct to video.
Yeah, once it goes to the final couple ones. So that's the sort of boxes I put this in.
Yeah.
And for me, they all have very interesting little avenues to go down with all three of those. Even though the Bride and Seed are connected to the last ones, and Andy does come back in the last one, but there's these eras for the franchise that I think they were all fruitful for me. They were all interesting. Even 3, which I would put at the bottom, has a really strong opening, really strong characters, a really strong premise. And I don't know, what do you think this franchise is about? Like, what do you think like they're doing with the, with Chucky?
I feel like from a creative standpoint, as they're talking about this, how it has its eras, I think that specifically is fascinating to me because it feels like an extrapolation of when you think of a lot of slasher franchises, each one is a gimmick. And if you think specifically of all the Friday the 13th, once you get past 2, each one of those movies it's this one but this, and they're episodic specifically. And I feel like with the Child's Play films, it toes the line a little bit past that. And I think part of it also is because they have such large hiatuses between releases. Like between 3 and Bride is 7 years, Bride to Seed is 6, Seed to Curse is 9. Like they constantly go into these kind of fallow periods. And with that, it's just sort of like, okay, well, how can we counteract that as aggressively as we can? I think it's also the main thing is it's, in terms of what it's about, I think the whole franchise is just so gay. Gayer than most horror franchises, which is an inherently operatic genre. I think kind of externalizing that in a really fascinating way and making literal the artifice of the genre as a whole and kind of condensing it into its antagonist, I find fascinating. And then basically fractalizing that into these offshoots of like, now he has a bride, now he has 2 children, now he has multiples of himself. It's just kind of how far can you push it? And I find it compulsively watchable.
I feel like there's like 2 threads about Chucky that I guess I want to kind of like go into more based on sort of what you were talking about. I think you're totally right about like how a lot of other horror franchises, they do kind of just like they're iterative and they just kind of do the same thing over and over again. And with each Chucky, I mean, they're all pretty, I mean, other than I guess the first 3 are all pretty similar, but then after that, they all get pretty like different. And I think they like, compared to other franchises, obviously like with most horror franchises, like the monster or like the slasher, like the main bad guy is sort of like the main character to a certain extent. But I feel like Chucky's one of the few that gives him more like pathos and like more like actual, like something to actually do, and like an actual like personality and like desires beyond just killing that I think end up being interesting. And then another thing I guess I was thinking about watching this one after I saw this one like a year and a half ago, and then I watched all the others and then went back to the first one. And something interesting is like I feel like unlike other horror franchises, the sequels don't really care about the first one and the events of the first one that much. And like it feels like with a lot of other horror franchises, it's like the first one's a huge hit and then you just do a bunch of sequels and then like they're all kind of trying to like work on the formula of the first one. And I think because of like the weird way that the franchise worked out and that like Don Mancini wasn't super involved in the creation of the first one, there's not like that much that they're taking from that one, if you know what I mean. Like it doesn't really like, they're kind of just like stuck with the mythology that the first one like creates, but like they don't like they don't have like as much like respect and like
Reverence.
Yeah, there's no like, oh, we're going back to Chicago to Brewster Apartments or something.
Yeah, I would say the closest that it gets is in what's the haunted house one?
Curse.
In Curse, when
I
they're
was gonna
like,
say because that's when it like goes back. That's like
Yeah.
It's like the Rage Carry 2.
Yeah. I really like that one, and I want to talk about that one more. I mean, each one of them are interesting. And you're right. I think what the first one set up is that the idea of Chucky is compelling. We like thinking about Chucky. We like thinking about the dolls that we play with. We like thinking about, these like 80s capitalistic, like pitching to kids. But there's more to that because there's more to Mancini, who is the central character, the central authorial voice of the franchise. Like Matt was saying, this queer subtext becomes text. They don't make that stuff subtle, and it becomes this fight between how queer can Mancini push things, and how wild can we make the kills? How far can we push things? I find that to be a very watchable franchise, where even the choices or the limitations of the eras, the later ones have that 2010s digital sheen to them that I find very hard to watch with other movies. It just helped these movies for me. Maybe it's because we're a little bit removed from it, or whatever. Maybe I was just having so much fun watching them, but I was like, oh, each one of these is a pretty good encapsulation of their era.
Well, that's the thing I want to go back to is when you said there were eras. I mean, specifically when you put them in when you kind of put wedges into the time lapses between each entry's release, it is very much like the first three are the 80s. I know the first one's 88 and then they're 90 and 91, but like 91 is still the 80s.
Yeah.
And then you get 98 and then you get something that's very mid 2000s. And then all of a sudden it's the mid 2010s. And so all of them they're very much of a time in retrospect, which I find fascinating.
And they do kind of the Scream thing where like they're each kind of reflecting and making fun of like whatever horror trend is it.
Yeah, I mean with Bride because Bride was partially made because of the success of Scream, and I Know What You Did Last Summer, which is funny because it's like when you think of Bride of Chucky, it is a post Scream slasher, but it also isn't because it's already an existing property. Like it's a sequel. It's not like a Valentine or an I Know What You Did Last Summer, like like that. But
Let's walk through them film by film, just because I do think that the rise and fall is really interesting. Not rise and fall, but yeah, the trajectory of the franchise is interesting to me. Child's Play comes out in 1988. It sort of, it was a hit, but not a massive hit, right? I find Child's Play to be a very straightforward horror movie, not very flashy, not my favorite of the franchise by far, but an interesting film with some characteristics that you don't see for the rest of it. I find the voodoo shit like incredibly hard to watch at times, and just like very Hollywood, generalization shit. But the movie doesn't take it that seriously, so I don't have to take it that seriously. I don't know. I find there's stuff in one that like I'm very happy that it was made. I do think the Chicago stuff is very surface level, which I think we should talk about a little bit. Or at least the decision to set it in Chicago feels surface level, and then the use of it is pretty good.
like it's circumstantial that it's set in Chicago, or
Well, I don't know. It's very obvious to me that they set it in Chicago so that they can have that one scene where they go down to like the bad neighborhood and there's all the homeless people. And
yeah,
because they were like, we want this to be rough and real.
Yeah.
yeah. And then there's the one scene where Catherine Hicks gets sexually assaulted by the guy when she's looking for Chucky's house,
Yes.
home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'll just briefly talk about so I read the first chapter of this book called, I think it was The Reign of Chucky, which goes through each of the movies and talks about like the making of each of them in pretty stark detail. And so with the first one, like the production of it was just like Mancini wrote a script, the producer David Kirshner, just like he had just done An American Tail, and he was like, I want to do a movie about dolls. And then someone was like, oh, there's this really great script. I think it was called Batteries Not Included.
Yeah,
at
it
the
was
time.
because his dad worked in marketing, and so originally it was a satire.
Yeah, it was and he was inspired. Mancini was inspired by. I just want to talk about it because it's really funny. But there's this thing called the Garbage Pail Kid riots, which is that what they were called?
Are you talking about Cabbage Patch Kids or Garbage Pail Kids?
Oh, I think I'm thinking
Garbage Pail
about,
Kids is the
The
parody
parody.
of
Yeah.
of
So it was the original, it was the Cabbage Patch.
yeah,
I think it was the Cabbage Kids.
Yeah, it was. He was very much inspired by the Cabbage Patch craze of the '80s because he
Yeah.
was like in college when he wrote the first one. He wrote the first one like a couple years before it came out.
Yeah, and it was like there were a bunch. It was like that scene from what's the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie?
Oh,
Jingle All the Way.
Jingle All the Way.
How like everyone's like fighting in the stores for
Yeah.
the dolls. Like that was happening.
The Stampedes.
with the Cabbage Patch Kids.
Okay.
Yeah. And then that's what inspired him to write it. Anyway, so David Kirshner gets the script. He's like an artist as well, Kirshner, and he just draws a picture of Chucky, and that just becomes what Chucky looks like. And then Tom Holland I think John Lafayette at some point did a rewrite of the script, and then Tom Holland got it and then rewrote it completely, and he's the one who set it in Chicago.
Yeah, John LaFia was brought on apparently to make Chucky more, or Andy more likable, because originally it was a lot more protracted in terms of whether or not Andy, because that was the original idea too, which
And he was doing the murders.
it was like there was a blood pact between the two, because the dolls bleed and you have to buy bandages for them, and that's the marketing satire, and there's a connection to Andy's id, and Chucky is killing people that Andy resents. So it's like he kills the babysitter, which the remake, when we get to that, if we want to talk about that, kind of basically just cribs that.
Yeah, we need
idea.
to talk about the remake.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then Tom Holland, it's funny, even Don Mancini, I saw a clip where he was like the bit with the actual voodoo doll. Mm-hmm. Don Mancini is like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, if he's using a voodoo doll here, why can't he just do that to kill everyone? Like, what the fuck? So he wasn't a fan of that. And later on, Don Mancini would go on to be like, yeah, I was always really ambivalent about him having a goal. Like, why can't he just be a doll that kills people?
Yeah, which is what it turns into, which is more interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like at some point it's kind of nice how in the later ones he just kind of accepts, like, oh, I'm a dog, I don't have to be a human.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess he becomes.
Yeah, I mean, the rules of it are less important.
Yeah.
And, you know, the first one makes it very clear that if he doesn't get into a body, he will die.
Yeah.
Well, he is immortalized. He's stuck in that body forever.
Yeah.
And then they just sort of.
Yeah, I mean, because this is the first one, and then the second one, it's, okay, I got to go after him again. The third one, it's, whoops, I accidentally revealed it to someone else. I guess I'm going after them. And then in the fourth one, they're like, oh, now there's an amulet we have to go get, which has never been mentioned.
Love that, though.
His corpse is on the cover of, like, is it Tribune?
Something like
It's like the Sun Times. He's like on the cover of the newspaper, his bloody corpse. They have to go to where he was buried with that.
One thing that I like as a through line through the series that they do eventually drop is like each opening of the franchise is putting Chucky back together, or the creation of Chucky. You know, those first three, the Andy trilogy, they make that very clear that they're formulaic in the way they're iterative, like you were talking about. And I am comforted by those things, even though I'm happy I broke free of those restraints. But I really like the toy factory, melting the body down, seeing the blood drip in, all that stuff, which, you know, that stuff really works for me. Of like, and they make that more obvious later on that he's a Frankenstein creature. They with stapling his body back together. But I really like, I'm very much so into that, like that imagery of like the you know, the factory line and making him, I don't know,
Like the end of 2 and
the end of 2 into 3.
into 3, yeah. Which again, like 9 months before Terminator 2, so fucking suck it.
Oh, interesting.
Cameron.
And the most recent one is kind of has some.
You mean the remake?
No.
Are you talking about Cult?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, not the remake. Colt has a lot of T2 stuff,
Yeah.
like a lot of Sarah Connor, like
Oh yeah,
in the hospital
Mhm.
stuff in it.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, that and a lot of I think he mentioned the Fury a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of Amy Irving. That's it.
I want you to go off on 2 because I know 2 is very important to you.
Yeah, 2, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. So the thing was, I didn't see 2 when I was like a depressed 8-year-old going into like up to like 10 or whatever. But when I saw it when I was around 12 or 13, I think 2 is very scary. And I remember the first time I watched it, I was vehemently surprised at how scary I found it, because I think the first one, there are moments of the first one that really frightened me, mostly when Andy is in that institution and you see Chucky from afar. There are moments of one that I think are scary, but it's more kind of like a fun thrill ride. And then I think 2 ramps up the meanness just enough to the point where there's something deeply sad about watching this child understand that he's fundamentally unhappy before he knows much else, because he's still a kid. I found the relationship with Christina Lisa's character to be very affecting. I don't think it's a perfect movie. I think Jenny Gutter and Garrett Graham need a little bit more to do. And apparently they did have like another scene or two, but they went over budget. So they got cut out and they were kind of pissed. But I find it to be, it's even aside from it being, in my opinion, a great horror movie, there isn't a lot of art that's about children being unhappy. The youngest we usually push it is when someone's well into adolescence, like high school. But as anyone's still in single digits, I feel like it's kind of this like unspoken taboo that kids can be depressed. And that's something that I think 2 does very, very well. 3, I think, yeah, I mean, you push it forward 8 years, all of a sudden he's a 16-year-old and becomes inherently less transgressive. And 2, also, I said this to Jeremy before, but I really would love it if someone would do a double feature of Child's Play 2 and Jacques Tati's Mon Oncle, because it's the Jacques Tati third act of Child's Play 2 and him pretending to be Andy's uncle to infiltrate this suburban lifestyle that just goes awry. It's great. It's the same movie.
Coming soon.
Yeah.
I love that.
2, the end of 2 is the Toy Factory.
It's the Toy Factory, yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah. Also, I will say a thing about 2 that I don't know why I never thought about it specifically in these words, but I'm like, I think a part of the reason that movie is so affecting is because it's shot from the perspective of a child the whole time. 1 is very much grounded, and it's very much. You mentioned, Jeremy, that the Child's Play movies are about not believing kids, which I think they are. But I think the thing is, the first one, they don't believe Andy for like a third of it, and then for the rest of it, it's mostly them not believing Karen.
Right.
So it's jettisoned onto an adult, whereas the entirety of the second one is not believing children.
Yes. I really think the franchise becomes not believing people who are historically not believed. So not believing children, not believing women, not believing people who are institutionalized, which becomes a through line through almost every single one. People on the fringes, and like being afraid of ridiculous circumstances, because being killed by a toy is ridiculous. It's silly. It's the reason I wasn't scared of it as a kid. Even though I did have very vivid fantasies of my toys coming alive and all these things, my toys never felt evil. I never felt like I was in any danger. And seeing a franchise that was preying on that, I see how that could be someone's idea of the scariest thing in the world. But I did experience the situation where you go tell an adult something, and everyone immediately dismisses it because you're a child. And that is I didn't know that that's what this franchise was. Whether it's Andy, whether it's his mom, whether it's what's her name, Fiona Dorff later on, her being confined to her wheelchair and then confined to an institution, all these things become people dismissing, and like what is obviously happening right in front of people. And I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, I actually didn't think about it as it relates to Fiona Dorff's character, Nika, so much in the 6th and 7th ones, but I do find it fascinating how she's confined physically and then it continues on to her being confined mentally.
While we're on it, let's move on from the Andy trilogy and talk about the entrance of Jennifer Tilly to the franchise and the 2 films of Bride and Seed.
Yeah, I feel like that was, when I was watching them, that was like when I started like really like enjoying myself beyond just like, oh, this is like a fun slasher series. I think just like, her characterization is so great. She's so great as Tiffany, and I feel like how she plays off her relationship with Chucky and sort of like their give and take, I think ends up being like such an important part of the franchise, which is, I'm glad like they didn't like totally get rid of her. And I think have either of you seen the TV show?
No, I have to, but I don't know. I haven't watched it.
Yeah. I also haven't, but I think she's like a big part of that.
She's a very big part. I mean, it's so funny if you follow her on social media. Everything is about Chucky
and Poker.
Chucky and Poker. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I really love in Seed how I think it's in Seed, right, where Jennifer Tilly becomes a character.
Yeah, she's playing herself.
Yeah, that's like I think that's honestly what edges it into being my favorite one is just like that element of it. I just like love that dumb Hollywood shit.
Yeah, no, Seed is so good. Matt and I watched it together recently. It's so silly. John Waters is in that one. That one pushes things way past like almost to the point of no return in terms of its, artifice and surreality and all this stuff, especially that final scene. I'm like, the final scene where it's in the LA home and they've become human. I'm like, how do we go? Where do we go from here? Like,
You mean when he's trying to, or you mean the hospital, or?
no. Okay. So at the end of Seed, the very final scene, they're at the birthday party.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, where does the franchise go from here?
Yeah.
And then when I watched the next movie, it was like, we just make another movie is the answer. We don't answer what happened. We don't have to like cross any T's or dot any I's. Like, it's just now a haunted house and Chucky is there. And I'm like, yeah, of course. You don't need to explain things. It's a horror franchise. It's not that serious. And then they slowly introduce elements and Jennifer Tilly comes back and all these things. But like, for the most part, Bride, introducing Tiffany as a character, having her live in the trailer park homes, and then literally introducing Jennifer Tilly as a character and having Tiffany invade her body. Those two movies for me are the top of the franchise. I think Seed I like more than Bride, but I didn't like Bride the first time I saw it. I think it was too much for me. I wasn't ready to accept camp. I wasn't expected to.
Was this like as a teenager?
As a teenager, yeah, when I was first getting into movies, I just wasn't ready to accept that as an aesthetic that I liked.
Which is so funny because for me, that was Bride and Seed in particular were very important for me. Like those were on constant rotation for me, like late middle school into high school. I wore those DVDs out. And the funny thing about it is because I was like, oh yeah, I really like the first two. The third one's fine. And then 4 and 5, I constantly rewatch. And at the time I wasn't specifically aware of why that was. And I was like, oh, because those are the counterculture ones. Those are the gay ones. And specifically with even just like these kind of decisions that Mancini as a writer doesn't need to make with Bride, these kind of macro touches that establish the world as being queer, like the idea of David, Katherine Heigl and Nick Sabile's friend, like, oh, he's actually gay. And there's actually a brief moment where he's like, yeah, I wrote my boyfriend a letter and then his mom found it. And like, I haven't seen him since. We haven't been able to see each other. And then he dies horrifically. But the thing about like Bride is that there is something countercultural about it, but also at its heart, it's also like, that's just 1998. Like it's just the industrial rock turn of the millennium. And then I think Seed is doing something that is much more aggressively subversive for a movie that comes out, a week and a half after Bush is reelected. It's the year when Passion of the Christ is one of the biggest things on the planet. It is such a fascinating thing. And then you have Pino Donaggio, who's known for scoring all sorts of Reagan era transgressions, like specifically Dressed to Kill, which the movie is playing off of to its logical endpoint. I think that so often I think of just, it is so amazing that movie got a wide release in over 2,000 theaters. Like it didn't do well. It barely doubled its budget. So maybe it broke even, but like, I'm still in awe that movie came out. I don't think it's incredible, but I do unironically think it's important.
That's interesting. I didn't realize it came out right after Bush was reelected because
November 12th, 2004.
The first one, it came out the day after HW was elected.
Yeah, November 9th, 88.
Yeah.
And then the second one happens to come out 2 years later to the date, and that's weird.
Right. It's extremely interesting that, that 98 to 2004 change, right? For the two movies, but they are tied together aesthetically. And I would say Curse and Cult are tied together aesthetically.
Yeah, definitely.
How much do you think Bride and Seed are tied together aesthetically?
I feel like because Seed, I feel like is right before. I just like thinking about it in terms of like what other horror movies were coming out. I feel like that was right before right before the Saw revolution.
It was like it came out like 3 weeks after the first Saw came out.
Yes.
But like I think like because Bride has that blue tint over the entire thing. Yes. And it's shot by, I think is it Peter Powell?
I do not know the cinematographer of Bride of Chucky.
But he did like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Oh shit! Okay, cool.
But it's like I need to double check that. But the thing is, and then that one is incredibly stylized, whereas 2 is a lot of bold colors and kind of
Seed.
Low depth of field. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's very much De Palma.
Well, yes, I do. Yeah, especially that photography scene with John Waters is very De Palma, and it's just so memorable when they melt John Waters' face off. I do think that aesthetically, the pop colors of those two films are similar. Just compared to like the way that the first three are 80s, early 90s horror, and the Cursing Cult are glitz, digital, not glitz, just very like washed out black and white aesthetic. There's like that scene in is it Curse, where they're showing her mother tied up by Charles Lee Ray,
Mm-hmm.
and there's all the
sunflowers in the background.
Yeah, where like it's so purposefully washed out. Whereas Bride and Seed are going for pop colors. They're going for whether those pop colors are the blue wash of grunge or whatever the hell Seed is doing.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
But yeah, do you guys like Cursing Cult?
I think Cult is honestly probably my second favorite after Seed. I think I just love how like crazy it gets. Like I just love when I just love when it's just like, oh, there's just like a bunch of them now. Like it's just really fun. Like that's just like that idea of there being a ton of Chuckies, which I think they originally, I want to say they were going to do 4, 2, and for 3. Yeah. That it was just going to be a ton of Chuckies. And like that's just like a really great idea. Even though like I didn't like the rules don't really make sense. Like oh he just discovers a new spell,
which they make a joke about. He's like, oh, I looked it up in like Voodoo for Dummies or whatever. Yeah. Like they toss it off. It doesn't matter.
Curse, I really like most of it, and then like the last 15 minutes are just like an exposition dump, and it just like it really just makes it boring to me. I don't know. I get the point of like why they have to like kind of explain like how she's his daughter and stuff, but like it just like it feels like either they could have just like sprinkled it in earlier or like not just like done like 15 minutes of like, okay, like here's a bunch of flashbacks and we're just gonna like slow down the narrative completely. But other than that, I feel like it was definitely the scariest.
It's haunting, and it has the does Seed start with the one in the house?
Like the dream sequence.
The dream sequence?
Yeah.
Where like the opening of Seed and Curse, they fit really well together in my mind. Of like watching the POV cam going throughout the house and stuff is so fun. Yeah. I don't know why I have this blockage with TV, but like I want to have watched the TV show, but I don't want to sit down and watch it. But I do feel like we would have like the final sort of unlocked thing if we had watched the series.
Yeah, and we're recording this like 2 weeks after it got canceled.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I think there's talk of him making another movie now.
Okay. I would watch it.
Like he's very much like, oh, it's still gonna go on, which I'm sure. Like I think this might be one of the. Is there a more perennial horror franchise? Like I can't think of anything that's ebbed and flowed in terms of what medium it is. But it all has this one guiding voice, which I find so special.
Yeah, the only franchise I can think of that has like kind of one authorial voice like is probably like the first 5 Scream movies with Kevin Williamson.
Yeah, because because Scream he wrote 1, 2, and 4, and then Wes Craven dies a few years after 4, so 5 and 6 are a different team.
But he's still involved at least.
He's
in
an
5.
executive. Yeah, he has an EP on them, and then who knows what'll change after this goes out. But like he's directing the 7th one.
Okay.
And he should direct it as a Chicago movie. Scream 7.
Scream 7,
yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah.
They can make Chicago look like Chicago instead of New York looking like Montreal.
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, I can't think of like, I'm sure there's some big franchise I can't think of. But like, I feel like with most series, it's just like you have someone, maybe you have like a big person, like kind of like authorial voice in the first one, and then like it just like someone else takes over.
A John Carpenter for Halloween,
yeah, whoever directed,
Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first one.
Cipolla knows all this stuff.
Sean S. Cunningham.
But those were not like produced in good faith.
No, they weren't. No, they were strictly cash grabs, and
Yeah.
they talk about that openly. But even like if you're talking about like a perennial horror franchise, I think Friday the 13th is maybe like the second most. But even
Maybe Ridley Scott and Alien, like, because he has the 2 phases of Alien, but like Chucky has the one voice. Don Mancini is on every single Chucky movie.
Yeah.
And literally also he has the one voice.
Yeah, exactly. He does. He writes from that voice, and it's
Or no, I mean like Brad Dourif.
oh yeah, oh my god, we have to talk about Brad Dourif.
Before we go into it, in the first one, they didn't know that Brad Dourif was gonna, or like they hadn't figured out the voice when they finished filming it. So they like went through a bunch of voice actors to actually do like the voice of Chucky. And it was originally going to be, they recorded I think the whole movie with Jessica Walters.
What?
Yeah, I was so confused when I heard that. I still don't know if that's like if it was evil Chucky or if it's like stock like toy Chucky. Like yeah. But I can't imagine the Jessica Walter cut that's like 2 hours like long with a lot more of not knowing whether it's Chucky or like I want to see that work print.
Yeah. Wow. Wait, even though Brad Dourif was the Strangler?
Yeah.
And then why? How did the decision of
I think I don't remember what exactly. I think at some point they were just like, it's kind of weird that he has a different voice.
I think I think I did see it. Someone like Damian Singh was like I don't remember if this is it, but they were like, oh, he sounds gay. Like Chucky sounds like it doesn't make sense for this guy. They were like, I don't know about that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think that this franchise wouldn't be what it is without that Brad Dourif performance. It is extremely compelling to me that he is such a little shit and you want to kick him across a room. And, you know, I think the thing that used to like sort of like ick me out about him is how mean he is and how nasty he is, especially to women.
Yeah.
And rewatching it is, they do have a really good control of that.
Of how far to push it.
Yeah. And like the only other thing to compare it to is the Nightmare movie. With just Freddy and his snark. Like,
yeah,
that is a pretty similar comp in my eyes of like one sort of lead slasher who has a personality, who sort of plays with his food before killing. And, you know, that those two performances do go hand in hand.
Robert Englund and Brad Dourif. Yeah, I see that. I think I'm happy you brought that up in terms of the tonal evolution of Child's Play works, because at the most in the first maybe 2 or 3 he's comedic, but the movies aren't. Whereas with Nightmare, they're pretty much all serious to at least to a broad degree, but he gets increasingly comedic, so there's a dissonance that doesn't work for me in those later entries until you get to something like A New Nightmare, where it's like, okay, well, now we have to make it meta.
Got to make him mean too. He's
a
scary.
threat. Yeah, which I mean, but if you think they push Chucky's kind of his vitriol as far as they can put, like, do you still think he is inherently scary later on, or is it's just a joke?
I guess we could talk about that.
Is
Chucky scary? I mean, like, as I was saying earlier, like, as a kid, like, yes. I think it was just like the image. Maybe it's probably just like the image of him like all stitched up. Like, that was just like really horrifying to me as a kid.
Yes, and his stitched up face was something for me as a kid as well.
But like watching them now, I mean, other than Curse, like, I wasn't really scared by any of them.
You guys are both taller than me, and I think Chucky is about being afraid of smaller people, short people, having a short partner. I think that Chucky is like especially scary because you underestimate him. He's scary because he's in a room and you're suspecting someone to pop out, and he's able to blend in because he's a toy, right? So like in that way he is scary, but I just like at the end of the day, like, you can just kick him.
Yeah, I mean, I think part
He's
of
not
it too
that
is
scary.
like he is, but he also does. There's a kind of, at times he shares a DNA with some of the other shitty characters in the movies that aren't killers. Like, I think of like Beth Grant in Child's Play 2, who's hilarious. Also with her Just Say No button. Apparently she modeled her performance in 2 after Nancy Reagan, which is very funny to me.
The sister?
No, Beth Grant, the teacher.
Oh, the
Beth
teacher,
Grant.
Beth Grant
Yeah.
from Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
Okay.
But because I think it's inherent to a lot of slasher films. It's like you want to see these characters die to a degree. So it's like other people have to be shitty as well. He's shitty, but like it's contextualized in terms of like whatever the ethos of this world is. But then you bring in Tiffany and you just love her.
Yeah.
She's the best. No, I think the answer for me is Chucky is not scary, but I find him compelling.
He's, maybe it's just because maybe just because he's on the news all the time right now. But Chucky's kind of like a Venom type character. Just like in terms of like, I don't know, there's something about his iconography. Like, I just like, that was another thing about Chucky that maybe was like why I was so scared all the time. I feel like all the older kids always like had like Chucky shirts or like, just like there was always like some kind of like creature on someone like like a Chucky doll on someone's like lawn during Halloween or something. And it sort of reminds me of like people's like fascination with like Venom. People just like love Venom.
No, we like to think about Venom, another queer comp character.
Yeah, and like people just like to think about Chucky.
Yeah,
he's just like a fun guy.
he's a fun guy.
Oh, I'm gonna go way back with this, but also in terms of early exposure to Chucky, there's a weird. I don't know why I remember this. There's an episode of Full House where I think they go to like Disneyland. There's a reference to Chucky in there, and I was like, oh. And that was something that stuck out with me. But that's another thing too. I'm like, oh, once you bleed into kind of mainstream pop culture and what I imagine aired in like the early 90s, I'm like, oh, that's something. You made it.
This is actually a pretty good segue for me into talking about the Chucky imitators, the movies that came out in the wake of Chucky, movies that are going for the same thing. I'm thinking about Puppet Master. I'm thinking about Annabelle. I'm thinking about Megan. There's all these movies that have tried to like capitalize on those same fears, those same themes, concepts. Have you guys seen any of those movies?
Actually, I watched Megan the other day because I feel like you told me I had to. But yeah, I watched it. I think like maybe the day after I rewatched the first Child's Play, and I think that made Megan way worse because like the first Child's Play, I guess we didn't really talk about it that much, but like it's like 82 minutes long. Like it just goes into it like immediately. Like you just like within the first 5 minutes he turns into Chucky. Within like the first 17 minutes like he already kills like the babysitter. And like with Megan it just takes so fucking long for anything to happen. Like she's not even like, you don't have like Megan appear for like 45 minutes in. Like she's the star of the show.
I think the best thing that has come out as a Chucky imitator is the Megan trailer, which I think was like, it's a very good short film, right? We like, in the same way that we like thinking about Chucky, we like thinking about Megan. Like that performance is funny of the dance and all that. But watching like a feature version, it was not very fun to watch. For me, like I was straining to laugh, and there's like 3 or 4 good laugh lines and moments. But it makes the fatal error that the Chucky remake does, which is like our fear of AI, and having absolutely nothing to say about that. Like really not. And the Chucky remake has much less to say than Megan, and says it in a much more boring way. But I do think that there's an error in making a modern version of this AI and not actually tapping into the visuals of what scares us about AI.
Yeah, and I think having Chucky be like a personality, like be literally a character instead of just being like kind of like a robot, I think just adds a lot to the franchise. Yeah. That something like I mean, like I like Megan as like a concept,
and I think Megan 2 has the possibility to be good. Like I think that the step up from the first Megan to the second Megan could be good.
Yeah, I don't really remember enough about the remake of Child's Play. So Mark Hamill does the voice,
and it feels very. It could have been anyone. It felt like a very last minute.
Brian Tyree Henry plays a cop.
Yeah, he's like the Chris Sarandon character.
Yeah.
Aubrey Plaza is Catherine Hicks.
And like those are 2 of my favorite of modern. Like
I don't remember who the kid.
I think
is.
Aubrey Plaza rules. I think Brian Tyree Henry is great, and I think both of them are given absolutely nothing to do.
Oh yeah.
There's like one good kill in it.
Do you know what it is?
Yeah, I don't remember. We saw this in theaters, and I don't.
I saw
guess
this with you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw it when it came out, and I didn't think it was terrible. It was just, it's one of those movies where you're just like, I'm not feeling anything.
I'm sorry,
right now.
it's terrible.
Do you think the remake is
I
terrible?
think the remake is terrible. I think it has all the issues, visual issues of that era of horror.
Oh yeah, I remember a lot. There is one scene where there's like someone gets like sawed in half or something, but you can't see what's happening. So I remember that was the thing when I was reading it. I was like, I don't even think gorehounds are gonna get much out of it because you can't really tell what's happening.
Yeah, it's not fun.
No, it's not. And I think
It should be fun.
the cardinal sin is, like, Chucky is flesh and blood. So when you make him into an android, there's no, it sounds glib, but like there's no body there, like there's no heart or soul. It's just kind of, the movie is dehumanized. It's not a movie fighting being dehumanized.
But it's funny that you mentioned earlier. The thing that I remember more about the remake than I remember about the movie is the marketing, because you said that one of the other ones came out right before Toy Story 2. Was that Bride?
Oh, it did. I was saying I happened to see a TV spot for Seed during a rerun of Toy Story.
Because I don't know if you remember this, but Toy Story 4 came out the same day.
It was the same day
as
yeah.
the
Child's Play
Child's Play
remake.
remake, and they had all their marketing was like tying in the fact that he's a toy to that world, which sucks because like I would rather have a remake talk about what modern children's toys are or something. I don't know. I guess my question for you guys is there a way to remake this franchise that is interesting?
At this point, my gut instinct is to say no, just because we're 36 years into it at this point. Like, I don't think especially when all of the mythology is canon. Like, it's the only thing I can think of is something like but I think the other thing is no, just realistically speaking, even if we're not talking like creatively, because the rights are kind of fucked up. So MGM UA has the rights to the first one, which is why they could do a remake of just the first one and use those characters, but they don't have the rights to two or anything out. They only have the first one. So it's like, maybe you could do something like the Friday the 13th remake where they kind of just put the first 4 movies into one movie and make it like 100 minutes. You could kind of just do like a best of like Child's Play 1 through 3, maybe. But like, that's the only thing I could even entertain conceptually. I don't think it would work, but
Yeah, I don't. I think Mancini is such like an integral part of why I think Chucky works, not necessarily why Child's Play works. Yeah. But like, I don't see how you could. Like you were saying, like there's so many imitators. Like at some point, it seems like right now we're stuck in just like every movie's about AI to a certain extent, and like.
Yeah. And the funny thing, there was a period in the late 2000s, like before Curse was even in development, when Kirshner and Mancini talked about doing a remake of the first one, but kind of changing it in terms of narratively changing it or putting twists into it. So they thought about it, but then they ultimately didn't want to.
And I mean, like Curse is sort of like at least like the first 45, 50 minutes is sort of like
it's like a soft reboot kind of. Yeah. But I mean, like they were gonna like remake it. It would be Andy as a kid again. Yeah. But
all right. I do want to make one more point about because we were talking about Nightmare, and I had brought this up to Matt and as part of my my theory of this franchise about being, not trusting people. Something that when I was talking with you about that, I hadn't even seen Cult, and the reference that I made to you was Dream Warriors, which is my favorite of the sequels for the Nightmare, and that one, that's 3 with with Patricia Arquette set in the asylum. Is it an asylum? Is it?
Yeah, it's like a mental institution
for kids.
For kids with superpowers.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that like that it's such an interesting comp because like not being able to sleep is the reason why I like the Nightmare franchise, is because that's such a flash in the pan, fantastic idea for a horror movie what if you couldn't sleep? What if you slept you would die, because everyone needs to sleep. And I think it's really, really smart to tie in that lack of agency in asylums, in institutions, with a horror franchise. And I think that like this franchise does it so well with Cult specifically, of being like your main group of characters who all have these. I'm not saying it's like a good representation of any of those of what those characters are going through, but it is interesting to sort of tie those into like, well, we won't believe you when you say that this doll is going around killing people. And I just wanted to give Colt its flowers because I just finished it and I really liked it. It was one that just really, it rose in the ranks of it in terms of like how strong that one is, compared to later franchises, later entries in other.
I remember I really liked it when I first watched it the day it came out, and then I revisited it like 3 years later, and I didn't like it as much. I don't know if I was remembering the final half hour or what, but there were some moments. I don't know. I will say though, I think when I rewatched it, I was kind of like, oh, this is actually just a backdoor pilot. And I think that brought it down on a rewatch, but it's also one of those things where like I could see me liking it again more upon revisiting it.
Yeah, just like how I mentioned earlier, I just like how crazy it gets.
Yeah, it's ambitious.
Yeah, it's ambitious. It's like I guess that was a big thing about it that I realized. It's like it's the smallest one in terms of just like literally like location wise, but it just like does have like the kind of the biggest ideas.
That and both of them, Curse and Cult.
Yeah.
You know, being the one location thing, it keeps the budget down.
But
Yeah,
apparently they were both $5 million each.
That's pretty.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it. Like they look at times like local production, and I think that helps. Like I think that most of our modern horror movies look to quote unquote like commercials or good. And I think that like that sort of like the scene in Curse where the the priest gets his head chopped off.
Oh,
in
in
the
the
car
car
crash?
accident?
Or we
Yeah.
don't even watch the accident. It was just like one of those moments where it's like I was certain that we were gonna cut away because it has the look of a much lower budget film. Where like, oh, of course, the big set piece is that they've brought this one piece to set, and it's a guy whose head is caught in a thing. But no, they move it apart, and his head rolls off. And the same thing in Cult, where I was certain that we were gonna get a shot of that woman who is strapped down to the bed, and the glass falls.
Oh yeah.
I was certain they were gonna just stab right into her, but it does something way crazier. It's just like they become huge pieces of glass, and they chop her head off, and it's like that's what we're here for, is like these gruesome kills mixed with the silliness of Chucky as an idea, and those two movies execute that for me. Is there anything else that we want to talk about with Chucky?
I do want to bring up real quickly in the first movie, Andy's ride on the L.
Yeah.
How he's able to get from Lakeview East down to the south side by himself.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Because I wrote this down because so he goes from Lakeview when they get off. I think the announcer says he gets off at 47th, and they show him on the L go past the stock exchange. So he's like, he probably goes to like Diversey, and then he takes the brown line all the way down to the loop because he's still above ground. And so he has to get off, but he can't even like transfer to the red line. He has to like get off and walk to like Jackson, like 10 minutes. So it's not like an immediate like fare transfer. No. So walk to another line and then take the red line all the way south to like 47th.
Which, like, if we're talking
As
about
a 6-year-old.
if we're talking about just like evocative images, him on the brown line
Oh, it's great.
with Chucky is one of the best images of the entire franchise. Of Chucky becoming friends with Andy. Yeah, I let's talk about the Chicago-ness a little bit more.
I don't know how much we went into it, but they chose, I guess just to reiterate, Tom Holland chose Chicago, I think, because of kind of like the crime reputation, which I think is probably why a lot of movies were maybe set in Chicago at that time. As you were saying, you can definitely feel that in some scenes. But I also, like you mentioned earlier about how there's kind of a surface level relationship to Chicago, but the stuff that they do, like the actual on location shooting is great. Yeah. And I think they use the landscape really well. And that specific scene on like the south side, right after, because that's when he goes
To the house of the
To
accomplice.
Eddie Caputo's.
yeah. And that I haven't been able to like in the reign of Chucky, I haven't been able to verify this in like other like reporting from the time. But they like apparently like just like actually just like blew up a house.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Which is pretty cool. I don't know how they must have it's just like one of those millions of abandoned buildings, and they just like blew it up and blew up a bunch of people's windows as well. And I think that just like, I don't know, that is just like, I think it's a side of like literally a side of Chicago that's not portrayed often. And I think it's just like a really great image.
I think that like movies that understand the city understand that the city is many different things. And I think that like when the movie is at its worst representationally of the city is when it goes downtown to like the bums and like all this weird like back alley stuff that like it doesn't really. Chicago is seedy, and it's not seedy in the way that movies think that it's seedy. Like there's not like the trash can fire idea of like that's like LA grimy. And like but when it is grimy, it's like the pile, like the house that is like almost alone on its street, and there's like empty lots on either end, on the west, south, or like northwest sides of like the way that like blocks look, where it's like something's going on.
I think you're right that it sort of flattens the image of Chicago into this sort of like, oh, like every area is kind of grimy. Like I think like I'm watching it, obviously, if someone like knows that like, oh, these are completely different places in the city. But I could see someone, if you don't know, like, yeah, Lincoln Park is not going to be like that close to like where they end up, where Eddie Caputo's house is. I think there's a certain way. This actually weirdly reminds me of, I read a book a few years ago about the movies of Wong Kar-wai, and it just goes through each of his movies. And it talks about how in a lot of his, Wong Kar-wai ends up like, he does a similar thing where like he just goes through, he like zigzags through all over like Hong Kong, like places that are just like completely different. But like if you're like not from Hong Kong, you wouldn't know that. So you just have like your idea of it is so completely different that you might just think like, oh yeah, like one character is going from just like somewhere really close by, even though they're like transposing to the rest of the city, and ends up like creating like this weird like contraction. And I feel like Chucky, Child's Play ends up kind of doing that with Chicago.
A lot of movies, as we'll talk about in this podcast, do that with the city. It creates a shorthand. It creates like a few images. This movie does a few different things, though, in my opinion. Like it does things like the character falling from the window, the babysitter.
Yeah, Dinah Manoff from Grease.
Yes, falling from the window. The explosion of the toy factory. The one of my favorite scenes of like a back alley scene with bums is when she goes from being inside of like Macy's or wherever she works,
Goth Target.
Goth Target. Yeah, it's the Goth Target.
to the back alley right there. And that is like a realistic depiction of Chicago, probably because they were forced to be. It's only the scene later.
Where she's like going.
When it's like Skid Row.
Yeah, because that is either not on location and is a soundstage in LA, or just like they chose a corny looking location. But like almost everything else in the movie, like is it the Brewster Apartments?
Yeah.
The Brewsters, yeah. Diversity in Pine Grove.
It's an incredible location, very evocative, very Chicago.
Yeah. I tried to look this up to find if I could find like listings in that building. I don't know how much rent is in those apartments. The only thing I could find is like a first floor studio that's very, very, very small, and obviously nothing at all like the unit they're living in the movie. Yeah. It's like that rent alone is like $1,200. So like I can't even imagine how much they're paying for that palatial apartment. Yeah. I will say though, I don't know how much this makes a difference for either one of you two. I think the movie, it's not that it could be worse, but I think there is at least sort of a cursory attempt at contextualizing the locations just by virtue of like, it's very, very small, but it's like you actually see her get off the 76 instead of just like a bus.
Yeah.
Or they do, it's again, very circumstantial, but in the opening, they're like, it's Wabash and Van Buren. They're just kind of naming locations, not to say that they connect the dots particularly phenomenally, but I do think that there is enough of a sketch there that you can kind of flesh out into a picture.
They clearly hired local crew. Their location scouts did a good job. I think that like, yeah, the impetus, the reason to have it in Chicago was pretty generic and, flattening. And some of the decisions do that, but then others sort of counteract that. So I think it's like complicated for this movie for me, where I'm like, yes, it is circumstantial that this takes place in Chicago, but they did do a pretty good job when they did decide to.
Yeah.
And I will say there's a degree to, I feel like it looks like how Chicago feels just in terms of how fucking cold everyone in this movie looks.
Yeah, that's also crazy that they filmed it in
Wasn't it
the
like in
winter.
January?
Yeah, in January.
Yeah.
Which is just like, that's the
Like it looks cold. Like it was apparently like -40 wind chills some days.
Do we think Chris Sarandon looks like a Chicago cop?
I thought you were gonna say, do we think he's hot? And I
Do
was
we
like,
think
yeah.
he's hot?
Yeah.
He's always Prince Humpernick.
Prince Humper?
Yes, from Princess Bride.
Yes, I know.
He's that to me, so he can't be hot. I know he's a famous actor. He's been in many things. Do we think that he reads as a Chicago cop?
Not really.
Yeah, his partner does.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my god.
He's a very
Yeah,
like
the
stereotypical-
mustache guy.
Yeah,
Yeah, the partner, sure. I think he's anywhere USA cop, which is fine. I don't have too much of a problem with it.
no, there's something about him.
Well, he's
for
like
me.
doing his job, first of all.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
working.
Exactly. He's doing something. But like even in like the movie cop language, like he doesn't really work for me. Like he's a detective.
Detective Mike Norris, yeah.
Oh, wait, there's actually the opening scene. It how it just starts with them chasing after Charles Lee Ray.
Mhm.
In the initial, it was a much longer scene originally, and it was Charles Lee Ray following like a woman down an alley, and it's revealed that the woman is Chris Sarandon.
Oh yeah, it's like undercover.
Yeah. That was the initial, and then he starts chasing Charles Lee Ray.
That would
Yeah.
have been something.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to what the purpose of that would be if they're gonna discard that immediately and go into the foot chase. Aside from maybe thinking, oh, we're stalking this lone woman.
Yeah,
no, we're not.
Yeah.
That's like such a like an artificial subversion.
Something we can all agree on: the Lakeshore Strangler is an incredible name.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
Agreed.
Also, it's Charles Manson, Lee Harvey Oswald, and who's the final name? Because they're
It's in there. It's the assassin of Martin Luther King Jr.
yes, okay, just 3 notorious killers.
It's Charles Manson, Lee Harvey Oswald, and James Earl Ray.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Charles Lee Ray. That's fascinating.
Yeah, apparently it was John LaFia who came up with Chucky because he's like this. No one would call this doll Charles.
Yeah.
He was like, that's not modern.
Yeah, I like that though.
John LaFia, who I don't know if we mentioned this, but yeah, he did a pass on the Child's Play script and then he directed 2.
Yeah.
I think Chicago being one of the most famous like retail cities in the world, like the Michigan Avenue, it makes sense to set this movie in Chicago. Like I don't think it's circumstantial. Even though it wasn't a Mancini choice. Like I know that LA and New York are also famous retail places, but Chicago being this weird the center, like the business center, quote unquote, of the city, being this like weird odd place that doesn't look like anywhere else in the city, and having like tourists come in just to shop for Christmas. I think that if Mancini for whatever reason is listening to this, he should do his remake or whatever movie he's making next, like set it at the water tower, like set it in Chicago again, like do another one in Chicago, like bring it back here, or like set it in Wicker Park. Like I think it would be interesting to see Chucky rampaging in Chicago again.
Yeah, I want to see Chucky fuck up Logan Square.
Yeah. I guess one other Chicago scene I do want to talk about is the kind of like one car chase.
Oh yes, where he's
Great scene.
he keeps pressing on the pedal.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah, and then he cuts his brake line, so
Yeah.
and then he's getting stabbed from below. It's really good.
yeah, it's just a funny.
Yeah, again, like the floor of this franchise is pretty high, and the ceiling is pretty like it's like a 3 to 4 star. Every single movie is a 3 to 4 star for me.
3 is the one I've seen the least, and I think it's like a 2.5. but I would have to rewatch it. I do think there's good stuff in 3. I just don't think there's enough.
The setup is good for me, but the payoff is bad. But
I like the creepy barber. I like the fetishist barber.
Mhm. That stuff's good.
I like I do kind of like how the kids end up shooting themselves.
Oh yeah.
It's really grim.
Yeah. And I like the carnival.
The carnival is a cool set piece. I do like the carnival set piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, because the first 3 have like kind of big set pieces at the end. Well, the first one,
it's in the apartment.
Yeah,
but I feel like the set pieces are more kind of like scattered.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. But then do the later ones have like any big?
No, because they're all the one locations.
Yeah.
I mean, Seed has the showdown at the house, which isn't particularly.
See, they kind of all converge on Tilly's mansion.
Yeah.
And then Jennifer Tilly's Sunset Boulevard mansion.
Her Churrasco windows.
Yeah, and her S Club 7 assistant. It was when we were watching it, Jeremy was like, "Who is this actress?" And I was like, "Oh, she's one of the girls from S Club 7."
Sorry, that just makes me laugh.
That's
so
the
hard.
gayest part of Seed of Chucky.
There's a lot of gay parts of Seed of Chucky. I do find those movies are so fucking funny.
Oh, they're
Like,
hilarious.
the jokes they just land. But yeah, I'm very surprised that I turned around on this franchise. I'm very grateful to have Chucky in my life, and I'll watch the show.
Yeah, let's do
I'll
it.
watch the show.
Apparently, he becomes president.
Yeah, I remember I saw a lot of marketing.
Yeah.
He's president.
I want to thank Matt Cipolla for being on our podcast. Thank you so much for being here, Matt. Is there anything that you want to plug?
Yeah, when this comes out, there will be... So we're going on 20 years of Seed of Chucky. That came out in November of 2004. So I'm actually, by the time this is out, I'll have an anniversary piece for RogerEbert.com talking about that movie. So check that out.
What a good conversation. Wow, we're so smart. and
All right,
funny.
bye, Matt.
Yeah, have a good one, Matt.
All right, I guess before we finish things up today, Jeremy, I guess like what were your overall thoughts about the movie?
I really liked it. I think I liked it more than I thought I would. I liked it as a representation of Chicago more than I thought I would. I do think that there are thorny subjects it plays with. And even with all those things, it's pretty great, time machine going back to 1988 and seeing the city the way it was.
Yeah, I feel like it's really great at using Chicago as like a landscape and like for its physical locations. I think a lot of other Chicago movies because they mostly just skip to or like they just stay on like like the loop and like looking at all the buildings and the movie. I feel like it's got a more nuanced appreciation of like the Chicago landscape than that. But at the same time, like I don't know that this is a Chucky movie. It doesn't have to do this, but like it doesn't really like grapple with like the city at all.
Yeah.
In a certain way.
I agree.
Which is like it's not a problem. Like and it's like I'm not gonna be like, like Chucky should be eating a Chicago hot dog. But like I mean it'd be pretty funny if he was eating a Chicago.
Yeah. I want to see that.
Yeah.
Could get it all over his face.
But I do think it's a pretty good literal representation of like what Chicago like looks like and like its use of it. And I never feel like, oh, this could just be any other city.
No, which is great because I think a lot of movies, which we will dive into with this podcast, they use the city as set dressing. They use it as a name. And they don't actually try to like go to different neighborhoods. They don't actually try to like use the city for what it's good at. Like that Brown line scene with Andy on the train. Like that is a really good use of the city, of the locations. It's unsettling to see him out of his element. It's unsettling to see him near that big pile of trash. And the house that they go into after that is a very like South or West Side. How many stars would you give it?
Like it's a really solid movie. It's not that scary. But like, I mean, maybe if I was like younger, I don't know, if I was more of a weenie, I would think it was scary. But I feel like it's got so little fat on it that it's just like, it's kind of just like impressive as like a feat of like, here's just like how you do a slasher. And it's just like really solid. And I'd have to give it 4 stars. You know, kind of like the Chicago flag.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think I have similar issues. I think like there are some scenes that feel fake. There's some scenes that don't match the tone. Most of the performances are fantastic. And the ones that don't last very long, that aren't fantastic, don't last very long. So I think I'd probably give it 4 stars, like the flag, 4 stars.
Yeah, cool. All right, thanks for listening to 4 Stars, the Chicago Movie Podcast.
My name is Jeremy Martyr.
I'm Paco Alvarez. So you can please rate, review, and subscribe so that other people can discover us. You can follow us on Twitter at chicagpodfilmcast. If you have any hate mail, compliments, questions, corrections, you can email us at
Mayor Chicago. Oh,
yeah. at chicagpodfilmcast@gmail.com. Make sure to check out Matt Cipolla's work. He will have a retrospective on Seed of Chucky coming out soon for Roger Ebert. It'll be out by then. So we'll link into the show notes.
Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.
Please be considerate when talking on your phone or listening to electronic devices.